As nuns, we must all patiently endure the inevitable hardships of our simple existence without becoming lazy or disgruntled. Let love and compassion be your ready response to every situation. Ideal Buddhist Nun. Chee Kaew returned to join a healthy spiritual environment at the Ban Huai Sai Nunnery. During her absence, the local Buddhist laity had come to view the monastic community there as a vital part of village society. The villagers understood the Buddha's teaching on generosity and virtue as an invitation to the wider community to support the religious life of ordained renunciants. The presence of practicing nuns within rural Futai society was a stronghold of goodness, a genuine field of merit that all people could cultivate for their own benefit. The Ban Huai Sai Nunnery beckoned women seeking spiritual liberation and nurtured the spiritual lifestyle of the ideal Buddhist nun. She was a woman who stepped out from ordinary society, renouncing a household life of husband, children, and family to take a vow of complete sexual abstinence. Her appearance reflected her changed status. Her head was shaved, and she wore white monastic robes. Adopting a wholly religious path, she abandoned the normal means of livelihood and instead depended on the generosity of others to supplement the few possessions she owned. The basic spirit of a nun's practice was found in the solemn rectitude of the moral precepts, the training rules that guide the life of the Buddhist renunciant and her path to spiritual liberation. Hello, Maggie. Peace be upon you. The basic spirit of a nun's practice was found in the solemn rectitude of the moral precepts, the training rules that guide the life of the Buddhist renunciant and her path to spiritual liberation. Because the precepts are the bedrock on which all spiritual progress rests, ordained followers of the Buddha's teaching have always attached great importance to their observance. Hello, Shia, peace be upon you. The moral training's true worth lies in its power to cut through the karmic causes and conditions that bind living beings to the cycle of birth and death. The precepts provide a foundation for Buddhist practice that closes the door to actions carrying painful karmic consequences. At the same time, it upholds the purity of mind and deeds that lead to freedom from suffering. The moral precepts also ensure high standards of purity within the monastic community, enabling it to flourish internally and to function as an inspiring model for lay society. Yeah, so Shia, I'm reading a book. I don't know how to give you a shout out, but feel free to feel free to type whatever you want me to give you a shout out about. Maybe it's your YouTube channel or something like that. In the Ban Huai Sai Nunnery, a nun's conduct adhered strictly to 8 basic precepts. In practice, she never harmed living creatures. She never took what had not been given. She led an entirely celibate life. She never used false, divisive, harsh, or frivolous speech. She never took intoxicants. She never ate food after midday. She never amused herself with entertainment or adorned herself with jewelry and cosmetics. And she never rested on high or luxurious beds. In essence, these simple rules articulate a way of life characterized by restraint and renunciation, leading to detachment and insight. The first four training rules, strictures against killing, stealing, lying, and sexual activity, delineate the moral foundation in which Buddhist monastic life is rooted. The other precepts are principles of spiritual training that help to create the conditions for a calm body and a clear mind. As such, they are merely an expansion of the basic four. When a nun is pure in observing the spirit of the first four, the other precepts are easy to keep. On the other hand, their infraction is considered a major offense. Seeking to solve the problem of suffering in any way that harms other living creatures is a misguided manifestation of anger and delusion. Taking what is not freely given betrays the fundamental relationship of trust existing between nuns who undertake lives of ascetic practice and those who, in good faith, offer them material support. Failure to maintain vows of celibacy undermines a defining characteristic of Buddhist nuns, their renunciation of ordinary family life. Beyond that, sexual abstinence helps to channel their energies toward higher spiritual attainments. False or frivolous speech undermines truthfulness and destroys trust within the spiritual community, among the lay supporters, and most of all within one's own mind. The nature of true moral virtue is subtle and complex, so complex that it cannot be attained merely by reference to precepts and rules of conduct. Ultimately, moral virtue is not measured in terms of adherence to external rules, but as an expression of the mind's pure intentions. The basic goal of the Buddhist path is to eliminate from the mind all impure intentions. Thus, true virtue can only be achieved by following a path of training that succeeds in rooting out greed, anger, and delusion. Moral precepts are a necessary part of the training, but the practice of moral virtue cannot fully accomplish its goal unless it is oriented toward the practice of meditation. Properly nourished with virtuous intentions, the mind quickly and easily develops meditative calm and clarity. Therefore, a nun who abides by the precepts experiences an unblemished and spacious happiness within. Life at the Ban Huai Sai nunnery was quiet and simple, emphasizing the development of mindfulness in each daily activity. Through her meditation skills, chee kaew began to assume an expanded leadership. chee kaew began to assume an expanded leadership role in advising junior nuns on the mood and direction of their mental training. She strove to lead by example, setting the tone for the others by rising at 3 in the morning and walking in meditation until 5. With the sun's first early morning rays illuminating the pathway to the outdoor kitchen, she joined the other nuns to prepare the day's food. The fragrant aroma of food and incense mingled softly in the morning air, A generous portion of their cooking was set aside to be offered as alms to monks from a nearby monastery. After respectfully placing the food into the monks' bowls, the nuns quietly gathered at the main sala and ate their morning meal together in complete silence. They reflected on the nature of the food set before them, viewing it as no more than a necessary requisite supporting their religious lifestyle. They developed an attitude of contentment with whatever they received. Following the meal, the nuns washed their utensils and cleaned up the kitchen area before retiring to their separate huts to continue their meditation practice because they ate only once. They were free to focus exclusively on their inner development for the remainder of the day. Having completed the morning's chores, chee kaew turned her undivided attention to meditation, retiring to a small cabin in a secluded section of the nunnery, where gigantic clumps of bamboo mingled with teak and mahogany trees. She entered a calm, quiet environment, free of external distractions. Under the leafy canopy, on a shady space of level ground, the local villagers had made a walking meditation track by clearing a broad swath of earth and smoothing it out flat. After sweeping the path clean, chee kaew stood erect and alert at one end and joined her hands just below the waist, the palm of the right hand gently overlapping and clasping the back of the left. With eyes downcast and mind focused, she paced back and forth from one end of the path to the other, pivoting and turning in one fluid and easy motion at the end of each span. She found the continuous movement of walking helpful in relieving the drowsiness and mental torpor induced by a full stomach. Hi Lola, peace be upon you. I'm reading a book. Harmonizing the repetitions of Buddha with each footfall, she completed several hours of continuous walking every morning. As her mind became absorbed in Buddha and her concentration deepened, the rhythm and pace of movement began to change, adapting fluidly to the steady current awareness that had developed. It's a book about a Buddhist nun. It's a biography. Moving in perfect unison as a single entity, her whole body appeared to glide effortlessly along the path, as though on a soft cushion of air. Oh, cool. Refreshed and invigorated, chee kaew then sat under the shade of a spreading fayum tree at the side of the path to continue her meditation until 3 p.m., when the nuns took up their afternoon chores. Together they swept the grounds of the nunnery, filled the water jars with water from the newly dug well, and then went off into the nearby woods to collect mushrooms, bamboo shoots, and other edible plants for the kitchen. After an early evening bath, chee kaew joined the other nuns at the main sala for the evening chanting. When the chanting was finished, each nun returned to her small hut to continue walking and sitting meditation in peace and solitude of the surrounding forest. chee kaew walked in meditation again for several hours before retiring to her hut to sit until late at night. In the first few months after her return from Ajahn Kong Ma, Mai Chi Kaew continued her diligent focus on body contemplation, but gradually her attention drifted away from the body as a meditation subject and toward her previous habits of external focus. Body contemplation went against the grain of her inherent spiritual tendencies, and in the end she succumbed to the natural momentum of her dynamic and venturesome mind. As soon as she closed her eyes, she felt herself falling down a precipice. A window to the universe opened up, and suddenly she was off on another adventure. Each person who is born must die and be reborn again and again in a cycle of suffering and hardship. Perhaps we'll die in the morning, perhaps in the evening, we don't know. But we can be certain that death will come when the time is ripe. Pilgrimage. Faithfully each year, when the cold season ended and the sun began rising higher in the southern sky and warmer days lengthened, Mai Chi Kaew led a small band of nuns on a pilgrimage to visit Ajahn Mun. He was living in the neighboring province of Sakon Nakhon. The first late winter rains had fallen by then, leaving the mango trees bursting with a constellation of blossoms and humming with swarms of nectar-hungry bees. Preparations had to be made for the journey, a 12-day trek over the Fufan Mountains down into Sakon Nakhon province, proceeding along broken, hilly terrain and into the broad valley of Ban Phui Nat Nai. The supplies were heavy and cumbersome, so the nuns carried only enough food to get them over the high mountains, where settlements were scarce. When their meager supplies ran out, they would rely on the generosity of small, far-flung farming communities that were often located a full day's hike from one another. Uncooked rice was packed in plated bamboo baskets. The pungent pickle fish used as flavoring was stored in clay jars, sealed with fresh beeswax. Dried meat and fish completed their diet, along with the wild forest plants they foraged on the way. The nuns left Ban Huai Sai Nunnery, walking in a single file, with Mai Chi Kaew in the lead. In addition to food, each nun carried a few basic necessities in her shoulder bag, and an umbrella tent to protect her from the elements at night. Simple homemade sandals sheltered her feet from rough ground and sharp stones. A plain cotton cloth covered her shaved head, protecting it from direct sunlight. By the end of the first day, the nuns had reached the Fufan foothills. The jungle was teeming with bears, tigers, and snakes, with only a scattering of human settlements located in crude pockets of cultivation. The weather was difficult and unpredictable. Still, the land was beautiful, verdant, and rich, thick with bamboo and rosewood, and carpeted by grasses, ferns, and wild flowers. A landscape of massive trees rooted in tangled undergrowth. Spacious vistas at mountain passes gave way to vaulted canopies of foliage and creepers, and then to myopic tunnels of chaotic vegetation. Protruding on ridges, undulating outcrops of black sandstone flowed over hillsides, breaking and folding into deep crevices where the trail could easily disappear for an inexperienced traveler. While passing a small village, the weary travelers could hear an offer of food and support. Grateful and with love in their hearts, the nuns took what little they were offered from the impoverished donors and searched for a secluded stream to bathe and camp for the night. Each nun sought shelter under a hand-crafted umbrella suspended from a tree limb, with a thin cotton tent cloth draped gracefully to the ground and encircling a bed of straw and dry leaves on which she could meditate for the night. Oh, thank you, Toast. Peace be upon you. God bless you too. Some nights in the small hours, my chee kaew dreamed of Ajahn Mun. His stern but caring face peered at her mischievously, as if to say, "Where have you been all this time? What's taking you so long? Can't you see I grow older by the day?" She shuddered, hearing the urgency and the steely resolve in his voice. Each morning the nuns partook of a single simple meal of steamed cooked sticky rice, kneaded into bite-sized lumps and dipped in fermented fish paste. Their meals were sometimes augmented with slivers of dried meat and fish, freshly dug roots and tubers, and a selection of forest herbs, spices, fruits, and berries. Their daily repast was just enough to sustain body and mind on the long march to nightfall. As the nuns travelled one step at a time, one mindful moment after another, and always in the present. After almost a fortnight of hiking along time-worn footpaths over mountains and through valleys, past fallow rice fields and orchard groves, my chee kaew and her companions finally arrived in the vicinity of Ajahn Mun's forest retreat on the afternoon of the 12th day. They were met first by the residents of Nong Phu village, gracious women bustling with hospitality, who helped the nuns bathe and wash their dusty robes. Once refreshed, the nuns made their final hike along the gently sloped and winding path to Ajahn Mun's monastery. Ajahn Mun's monastic community was nestled in a dense jungle at the upper end of a broad valley. The valley was surrounded by overlapping mountain ranges that seemed to stretch on forever, making it an ideal location for the kind of solitude which the Dhutanga monks sought. Clusters of thatched huts dotted the mountain ridges, where groups of 5 or 6 families eked out a living, growing crops and hunting game. Many Dhutanga monks relied on those remote communities for their family alms food, just as Mei Chi Kayu and her nuns had done on their journey. The nuns found Ajahn Mun seated in the central sala, chewing betel nut. He seemed to be expecting them. Eagerly the nuns kicked off their sandals, quickly washed their feet with scoops of potted water, and scrambled up the wooden steps to meet him. Always pleased at the sight of Mai Chi Kayu, Ajahn Mun roared out a rough greeting in the Futai dialect, threw his head back and laughed. The nuns prostrated in unison before him, making free fluid bows, their white robes swishing gently with each graceful movement. They sat respectfully to one side with their legs with their legs tucked neatly beneath them, smiling softly, expectantly, and mindful of his fearsome reputation. Ajahn Mun never failed to greet Maichi, Kaew, and her students with warmth and courtesy. After exchanging pleasantries and giving encouragement, he arranged for them to stay overnight in the secluded bamboo grove on the monastery's edge. Tonight they would sleep once more. Sleep. Tonight they would sleep once more. Sleep in their umbrella tents on piles of bamboo leaves. Tomorrow he would have the villagers construct sturdy platforms of split bamboo for his guests. He always welcomed Maichi Kaew as if she were part of the family and insisted she stay as long as she liked. Each morning after he finished his meal and the nuns had eaten theirs, Ajahn Mun gathered them around his seat and began to speak in a crisp, clear voice, chiding them for their laziness or urging zeal and determination. They were likely animated conversations. He was particularly interested to hear of Maichi Kaew's meditation adventures, strange and mystical tales of disparate realms of life and consciousness. Though he rarely contradicted the accuracy of her observations, he tried gently and persuasively. He tried gently and persuasively to reverse the focus of her mind's eye inward. Maichi Kaew was obviously enthusiastic about her remarkable ability and proud to show off her otherworldly exploits. Ajahn Mun was a master of all worlds, seen and unseen, known and unknown, known and unknown to all but the purest of minds. And while he was impressed by her mind's capabilities, he was equally concerned of its risks. Better than anyone, he knew the danger of visions and the illusion of knowledge. The pure mind knows all things equally, evenly, but attaches itself to nothing. To help Maichi Kaew shift her perspective and experience the true wonders of her mind, Ajahn Mun taught her many different methods. However, ingrained tendencies form habits, and habits have their own inevitable momentum. Many years before, Ajahn Mun foresaw that a dynamic teacher would appear in the future to steer Maichi Kaew along the right path, and so in the end it was left to fate to determine the time and circumstances of her awakening. Year after year, Maichi Kaew saw the tide of anicca, the law of ubiquitous change, overtaking Ajahn Mun's physical form. His body was aging quickly now, though his mind remained a diamond of the finest brilliance. Maichi Kaew had always maintained a very close spiritual relationship with him. The fact that her nunnery was mountains and valleys away mattered little, for she was often aware of his presence in her nightly meditation. His appearance was radiant and sublime, giving no indication that he had endured the onslaught of a grave illness shortly after she left him that spring. But as time passed and his condition rapidly declined, the tenor of his nocturnal visits changed. That's all for today, guys. Peace be upon you. Thanks for tuning in.